Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the inplayLIVE podcast. We are in week 13, lucky number 13. We don't believe in luck. We break it.
The harder we work, the luckier we get.
Exactly. Today we've got Ted from back east in Ontario joining us, inplayLIVE member, early adopter. He joined us way back in the football season, just a couple months in, right? So
yeah, I think our monthly subscriptions launched on August 8th, and he joined in the middle of September. So he's one of the earlier folks for sure.
Yeah, which is cool to see that he's stuck around and in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
Today we're going to talk a bit about some hockey. Well, we're going to talk a lot about hockey, I think mostly. We're going to get into the meat and potatoes of what this season is all about. Shortened season, COVID restrictions, injuries, win streaks, the impacts of these divisions, and just talk about how that maybe ties into betting and what we're looking at when we look at these rivalries that are developing or kind of really fermenting. They're already developed, but and how that's impacting game flows and things that we're looking for, right? So
totally.
Yeah. Without further ado, we'll welcome Ted in. Hey, Ted, what's going on, man?
Hey, boys, how you doing?
Welcome, buddy.
Pretty good, pretty good. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
You guys survived. You had a pretty nasty cold snap back east last week, I understand. Hey.
Yeah, I live in Ontario actually. It did snow a shit ton, but we're used to it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and you're a lineman, as you mentioned to us earlier. So the elements definitely probably impact your line of work, hey?
Yeah. I don't know. We work in all weather conditions, and middle of the night or whatever, a pool gets broken, you get called out, and you gotta go fix it. And,
now,
it's just part of the job, I guess.
I think that's a great segue, though. So you have a job that's very demanding in the sense that at any moment's notice, you might need to work at obscure hours. How have you found? How have you sort of let's just talk about before we dive into hockey, how have you managed, working a full-time, high-paying, high-demanding job with, being a sports value analyst?
Yeah, honestly, man, the whole COVID thing's definitely helped that, I would say, having a lot of, downtime outside of work, because, unfortunately, I haven't had a whole lot of time to, go out with friends and do stuff like that, but, I've had this great opportunity to do well with, joining this group, and, it's really helped, everything out, and, I've had more time, I should say, to put forward for this group and, fully commit to it. And I think that's why I've had success.
Right on.
Yeah, it'll be cool once things start to open up a bit too. I know there's quite a few guys back east, maybe in your neck of the woods, to get together with and have a beer and watch some games would be pretty fun, hey?
Totally.
Yeah, for sure, man. I could definitely use a couple of those nights.
I think everyone could.
Now,
so Ted, you joined in the middle of September. What was your unit size when you first joined?
I was betting pretty small, man. Probably $10, $10 units.
Cool. And what has that grown since?
Yeah. Probably around 100 sometimes, maybe $200 units, depending on what we're doing. Yeah.
Right on. So success since you've joined? How have you done?
Yeah, man. Probably up around 30K.
Oh,
dude, that's awesome.
I bet for whatever 5-6 years prior to this, and I didn't win fuck all. To be completely honest, I might have had count on one hand how many times I withdrew money, and I couldn't count on all my fingers and toes how many times I put money on. But I think the biggest thing for me was, when I just started rec betting, it was just for fun, and I was betting small amounts, and I wasn't losing sleep over losing a $5, $10, $20 bet, but I guess maybe because I started working and making decent money, and it's okay, well, I'm putting all this time into this, I almost need to start betting more, and I wasn't having the success. So it was kind of well, what's the point of me doing this? I'm just losing money, and like you said in some of your videos, I've had to stop doing it for a month or whatever, and then I came back to it because, I kind of oh, well, you just had a rough patch or whatever, but in reality, I things. Like, I like to make money like most people, like, let's be honest. So if you're going to spend time doing something, you might as well make some hay, right?
Yeah, do it. If you're going to do it right, right? That's the mentality.
Yeah, congrats on that, man. That's really cool in 6 months to go from probably what's like a $500,000 bankroll all the way up to that. And one thing I would want to ask you is, because I know we've talked about this with lots of different guests and on its own, but like, how did you find the process of internally and as a part of your bankroll managing that scale, like scaling up and feeling comfortable with that risk and escalating those bets? Because that's not everyone's able to get their head around that, right?
Yeah, I think to that point, there's some members that are stuck, right? They're stuck. They started with, $10, $20 units, and maybe they got up to $40 or $50 units, and now they're back down to $10 or $20 units. And, sometimes with someone like that, I'd say, hey, you know what? You've just done a ton of sports betting, had a ton of fun, and you broke even, which not a lot of people can say, right? They can't. Not a lot of people can say that. So that's positive. But I think a lot of people also are looking in and they hear about stories like yours, and they're like, shit, like, what am I doing wrong? So the scale question, I think, is a good one.
Yeah, I think like I can touch on that pretty good. Like, I had pretty good success within the first month or something. Like, I think I ran my I only had one account at the beginning, but I think I ran that up to like $9,000 from $500, or it might have even been less than that. I think I had about 500-600 at the time, and I was just like dumbfounded, and I'm like, this is fucking awesome. But I remember I think it was a Saturday, we were betting all day, and I go like, hey, this is I waited to up my unit size, but I'm like, okay, this is the weekend, I'm gonna go for it. So I started betting $100 units. So I think I went from 25 to 100, and I lost like $3,000 the one day. And you know what? In reality, it was probably the best thing that could have happened to me, because for the next 2 or 3 months, probably, I pretty much stuck to the $25, $50 units. And, I had days where I'd lose a little bit, but never anything like that. And then, of course, I still had great success on some days. You make $1,000 bet $25 units, right? Like, I'm not complaining about that.
Yeah,
right.
That's really good. Yeah.
Right. And then, but since then, you've scaled back up.
I feel like now I've gotten to the point, I've become more disciplined, and I can say this too, honestly, like, I probably would be up $40,000 or something like that if, I was more disciplined and, didn't bet pregame at all. And like I know there's a few guys in this group that I would call probably the exception that have made money betting pregame or still do or whatever. But like, in my opinion, it for me, it's pointless. And I have like no urge to even do it.
Right. Yeah.
Love it.
I know the feeling, but I think the flip side to that argument is like, maybe you wouldn't be at 40,000 because of making some of those sort of, let's call them less disciplined or more recreational decisions. Yeah. You know what? Number one, you can argue it's fun. Number two, it keeps your accounts in good standing to give a little bit back from time to time,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And you're right. Like, who knows, if I'd be up more or less. I do feel that way a little bit, but yeah, you're absolutely right. You don't actually know that because...
Yeah. And I think one of the smartest things that you said was just that $3,000 negative day. The sticking point is the learning experience, not the cascading problems that occurred thereafter. It's the learning and growing from it that brought you to where you are now.
Yeah,
I think that too, when you're like managing it stringently and you're looking at it like a proper money management system, and you take a sting like that, and we talk about this all the time, but you look at it and you're like, okay, well, would I have done anything differently that day? Probably not. And it's like, so I had that bad day, but if I stick to my system, then I'll get back up, and I'll, there are ebbs and flows, but that sting teaches you even more discipline.
Yeah.
Because going forward, you're like, wow, I really don't want that to happen again. So I'm going to make sure that as I'm scaling responsibly and so on, right?
And 4xing your unit in one, like making that decision where you're like, it's 25. No, now it's 100 as opposed to going 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, and so on. That is the sports betting world punishing all of us for Ted's decision that day.
Ted Cardone.
He
10x.
Yeah, that was Ted. The sports betting world went, nope, you're not allowed to do that. We're going to expose you to risk. You've probably never lost 3,000 in a day doing anything before, and you lost 3,000 that day because the sports betting world said, that's not how you're supposed to do it.
He's back with a vengeance.
You know what, man? In hindsight, it brought me down a couple notches, which is probably what I needed. It's, I think you guys would probably agree. Like, if you just win all the time, you think you're a fucking genius, and, you get way too cocky, and it's going to catch up with you eventually. Like, losing's part of it. You say that all the time, and it is. Like,
right.
Like, if it wasn't, like, why would people have regular jobs?
Yeah. So let's talk hockey.
Let's talk puck.
Yeah. So Ted, you were a hockey guy. Where'd you play hockey? Back east in Ontario your whole life, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just played like rep.
Okay.
Double B, like nothing special, but like I played it from whatever.
You don't have like a junior B claim to fame or anything,
No. That was all my buddies. I wasn't good enough to do that. They'd say I never had it, which I'd say, yeah, sure. I guess I didn't have those, 2-3 years at Jungle C hockey.
Yeah. Are you a Leafs fan?
Man, I'm actually not. Like, I grew up watching them a lot. I'm a Red Wings fan. Like,
okay.
A diehard Wings fan. Probably just because they were sick when I was growing up. But some of my friends joke and say I'm a bandwagon guy. But no, I still follow them now, and it's pretty fucking painful.
Yeah, they're hurting right now.
I mean, we follow the Canucks, so the thing is I'll actually be the first to say I'm the biggest bandwagon guy in the world. And people make fun of me for it, and I'm like, hey, I'm a fan of the wallet, right? So, I'm so sorry Tom Brady won with the Bucs instead of the Patriots this year. Boo-hoo. Like, my wallet doesn't give two fucks about what you think about who I cheer for. But, I followed the Mariners my whole life, and I followed the Canucks my whole life, and it's like, if you're following the Red Wings right now, it's like, you can't argue against that. You know what I mean? It's like, the Yzerman-Fedorov days were the glory days, but...
Yeah, I think they made the playoffs. It was a record across the four major sports. I think 24, 25 years.
Yeah.
Like I've seen more playoff games I'm 25 in my lifetime than like some people will in their entire lives. You know what I mean? So yeah, I was pretty fortunate to cheer for them and get to watch them growing up.
Yeah, it's like the Red Wings were balancing out how crappy the other sports teams in Detroit were, right? And now they all suck just as equally.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if they have
Lions, Tigers, and Bears. No, Lions, Tigers, and Red Wings.
Yeah, they're tough times for them.
Yeah. Well, do you remember? Do you follow the Tigers at all, Ted?
Like not crazy, but like I know some of the players.
Right. Well, they had the AL final, and they were about to win, and Big Papi hit the grand slam. It cost you a boatload. He had the Tigers to win that game on his last leg of a parla, and
yeah, that was like one of my first baseball experiences too. Was the playoffs that year?
Yeah, David Ortiz cracked a grand slam and then the Red Sox went on to win the pennant that year.
Yeah. And that was when Miggy was in his heyday, and they were sick.
Yeah,
and they had Prince Fielder.
They had Prince Fielder, Miguel Cabrera. Yeah. They had Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer.
Yeah, they were sick.
And JD Martinez was his rookie or second year.
Yeah,
like you look at that roster and you're like, holy crap. But yeah, anyways.
Yeah.
Detroit sports.
Yeah. So let's talk about hockey about this year. From like an overview, you've got a shortened season, and you've got these divisional rules. We're playing each team like 9 or 10 times in your division, right? So it's already revealed some pretty crazy ebbs and flows as far as like, well, you can really tell which teams stink, right? So that's for starters. The Canucks, the Sens, the Wings are struggling, but like with playing teams within your division the whole time, I feel like if you fast forward 2 months to the playoff race, we're going to have like an extra 3 to 4 weeks of playoff hockey because it's going to be so tight, right? You think about every overtime point, every shootout point that goes to your opponent who's 1 point behind you, right? And I think it's going to be kind of interesting there.
Yeah, I agree with that. And with that being said, too, like, when you play a team 8 times, like, even the Dead Wings, they're going to beat someone like the Tampa Bay Lightning when you play them. That's a bad example. But, like, Toronto and Detroit, I guess you could use. Like, they're going to beat them at some point throughout the season. That's just how hockey is. And I think that's why I would say it's one of the hardest sports to bet on.
Really? Okay, so you know what I was thinking about this, and I could be wrong, but this is what my gut tells me. The Canucks are a playoff team last year. They're a rock solid team. They're young, so you think they're very much up and coming this year. It very much feels like the Habs and the Leafs have them completely figured out. Like, they can't beat them, right?
Yeah.
And then you look at a team like the Senators, who is the worst Canadian team. They are. They're the worst Canadian team. They've gotten spanked by everyone. They've gotten a couple wins. But you take a team like the Senators and you go down to Carolina, right? Or you go down to even if a team like Ottawa, going to California, right? And you got to play the Ducks and the Kings and there's got to be another California team. Ducks, Kings, Sharks. You go on your trip to California. A lot of these shitty teams in hockey, and in any sport for that matter, you go play these guys once a year, and it's a bit of a surprise to both sides, and you can grab, minus 200, minus 300 favorites where the underdog goes in and just spanks them.
Yeah.
And I feel like now it's more predictable, which actually we don't like it in Play Live. We like a little more chaos, right?
Yeah.
So, the Senators have played well against the Leafs. That's who they've played well against. But everyone else is just absolutely spanking them, right?
Yeah.
And Ted, are you kind of saying that, agreeing with that? Like, is that kind of what you're saying? Like
to an extent, you know what? This season, I kind of agree with you. I think more what I specifically meant, like, if, Vancouver plays Ottawa 3 times in a row. I think they beat them 3 times in a row, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But, like, typically, like, Ottawa's probably going to grab one of those games, and like, they might not even outplay them. But
if it's dispersed, right?
Like,
no, he means because it's condensed.
Oh, because it's condensed.
Yeah, like, Ted, the way I compared it at the beginning of the season is, like, it's kind of like baseball playing these 2 and 3 game sets, and it's like, it doesn't really matter if you're the best team, like, you're going to drop one in a weekend kind of thing, typically, right? And it's that's where you're seeing, like, the parity is so close. And then, like, on top of that, more than half the teams, so, like, 4 out of the 7 teams in the North are going to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So it's like, that means that 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are all going to be kind of jockeying right up until that last moment. And then you look at things that are coming into factor, like we talked about before a bit, Ted, is like injuries. If you lose a top guy for 2 weeks in a 56-game season, that's, that's impactful. That's 5 or 6 games, and all of a sudden you go on a quick skid and you're right back down to the bottom of the list.
Right.
Or you lose, like, you look at teams that have suffered from COVID. Not only do they lose guys for a week, but then they got to come back and they haven't been skating for a week. Every team that's...
And their lungs are a little...
Yeah, no, every team that's come off... Look at the Sabres. When they came back, they sucked. They couldn't move the puck. They couldn't skate. They got dusted like 2 or 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
So there's some unique opportunities in that as well. But, like, God forbid your team gets hit by a wave of that going into the playoff stretch or something like that, then you're kind of, like, cooked. But as bettors, that's something we should be definitely aware of, I think. Seeing the impact of a team not being able to play or practice.
Yeah. You know what? I don't want to complain and be negative, but I hate it. I hate it. I hate that every team's playing each other over and over again. I want to see teams play new opponents on a regular basis.
It is tiring.
I hate the Canadian hockey teams. From a Vancouver fan standpoint, I hate every single Canadian hockey team.
Well, did you see also the Blues and the Yotes last week had to play each other 7 times in a row because the 2 of the other teams in their division were on the sidelines with COVID.
Yeah.
They played 7 games in a row.
That's ridiculous.
They interviewed Ryan O'Reilly after, and they're like, what's it like playing 7 teams in a row? He's like, we're just looking forward to seeing some new faces.
Fuck.
Like, not even a best of 7.
But
7. Like,
But what I was
crazy.
what I was thinking from the beginning is, you know what? Maybe there's going to be some more rivalry and hatred. But instead, it's kind of like, we're just looking forward to seeing some new faces. That's boring.
Bring back Scott Stevens.
Yeah, there you go.
That's 7 games in a row, like you just referenced Ritzker with the Yotes and the Blues. Like that's a bad look for the league in my opinion too. And,
Totally.
And I'd agree with Andrew too. I thought there'd be some more hatred, some more fights. Like fighting's gone up a bit this year, which has been good to see. If you're a fan of fighting, I think if you're a true fan of hockey, you should probably like watching fucking fights.
Or at least, or at least the physicality, right?
You probably don't like hockey, or you started watching it fucking 2 years ago. Like,
yeah,
it's part of the game, right? Like,
yeah,
and like you need that bad blood and stuff. That's what makes it competitive. Like, one guy hits a guy dirty at the end of the game, or Jake Muzzin flicks the puck at Matthew Tkachuk, and like the next game, like. People remember shit like that, right? And it's for a better game, in my opinion.
Yeah. Right. Well, you know what? There's actually some interesting nuances of the game. So first and foremost, you got teams like the Coyotes where the stadium is open. They're allowed fans to just pour in, and you look, and there's like 2 people in the building. So they're allowed fans, but there's no fans.
They can't even fill the minimum capacity that they're allowed.
Yeah, not even close.
Right, and then, stadiums like, all over Canada, of course, that don't allow fans. So I'll give you guys some information here on puck this season. This is the kind of stuff we look at in inplayLIVE and how we can capitalize on it. So 2018-2019, the average goal scored per game per team was 3.01 goals. That's 6.02 goals per game. 2019-2020, 3.02. Sorry. 2018-2019 was 3.01. 2019-2020, 3.02.
Yep.
2020-2021. What does your gut tell you? More scoring or less?
I think it's gone up.
I'm trying to think. I think it's pretty. I might say it went down a little bit.
Okay, so before I looked at this stat, I thought there is no question in my mind that scoring has gone up. And the reason why I say that is because I've watched so many frickin' Leaf Senators games.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, I've watched a few Ducks games, and if you're looking for a good time, keep looking.
So it is at 2.96, the lowest scoring average in 4 years per game. Now, flip the script over to what's happening at the end of NHL games. Given that there are no fans, one of the biggest things that people know if you watch and follow hockey is that in 1 and 2 goal games, the goalie gets pulled. So in 2019-2020, there was empty net goals were scored in 39% of the occasions where the goalie was pulled. Okay, in 2021, that's down to 32%, and the percents of that. Tracking that specific market is a really interesting one because it's close to 40% since the dawn of our existence. Close to 40%. And this year is down over 7%. So I think what that really shows is when you're on the ice and you have 18,000 drunken lunatics like us following you, you want and are motivated to score for the fans, right? Because most empty net fans goals are for the fans, right? They tend to not actually dictate the outcome of who wins the game, right? Obviously, if you score one, you're more likely to win, but they tend to not dictate the outcome of who wins the game. So that's for the fans, and they're way down. So that specific category is what is bringing that 3.02 down to 2.96 goals per game. And for anyone interested, this is the kind of stuff that we are tracking and has nothing to do with this one specific market, but all the various statistics in NHL relative to what's going on in the sports book so that we can capitalize and hopefully make money over the long term. So very interesting, the impact of no fans on scoring.
Yeah, like the no fans thing, I think just across all sports, like it totally changes a lot of different dynamics. But I think you have those certain superstars across all sports that especially like the younger athletes that are coming in now, they're on social media and they're doing whatever they can to make that extra buck, right? Like they're not just playing the sport. So when you take that away, like I can't think of anyone specific off the top of my head that's had like a really big down year, but certain guys like live for those moments, and when you take them away, it's that's why they're there to play as much as they're there for the paycheck. They want to be that guy.
Yeah.
They want to be the one buzzing around the ice in overtime and doing some stupid celebration, right? Like,
yeah.
So Ted, you've been following a lot of puck this season?
Yeah, like honestly, not as much as I'd like to, just because of work and stuff. And I feel like a lot of games, the last couple of weeks have been better, but they've been putting like 4 games who start at, for me it's 10 p.m. Eastern or whatever. So I might watch like half the game or whatever, but I don't typically stay up till like 1 a.m. watching sports just because I got to work the next day. I'd like to, but
right, yeah,
it's not
well,
the reality for me, unfortunately.
Yeah, so what's interesting is Canadian teams have struggled in the playoffs since we can remember. When was the last Canadian team that won the Stanley Cup?
I want to say, was it 05, 06?
Who?
Who was it, or was it in the final? Edmonton made the final.
Edmonton and Calgary were both up 3-1 in the finals.
And they both lost those then.
Yeah, they both lost.
Yeah. Okay, so then was Montreal the last team to win in like the 90s?
I think so. We could be wrong, of course.
I'll Google search it.
He'll Google search it. But going back to the divisions, there's a Canadian division.
Producer.
So are we making each other worse? I don't know, right? As Canadian teams. But if you look at futures, and I think one of the cool things, we don't bet a lot of futures at inplayLIVE, but if you look at futures, hockey is one of these sports where there's a lot of value in futures because of how unpredictable hockey is as a general sport. So, you open up the NFL menu and you'll see like Kansas City Chiefs will be 4 or 5-1 favorites. New England Patriots, the year that they beat the Atlanta Falcons after they came back from down 28-3, at the start of that season, they were anywhere between 4.0 and 5.0, so plus 300 and plus 400 to win the Super Bowl. You could get them in the Super Bowl at 10-1, at 15-1 when they were down 28-3. So it's just funny to think about, pregame and futures, and then the fact that they're actually there, and you're getting a better number than all the people that betted in September. But the favorite team this year, any guesses, guys?
I'm going to guess either the Bolts or the...
Bolts or the Leafs, for sure.
Yeah, one of the two. Yeah.
So the Tampa Bay Lightning are second at 8.47 or plus 747. The Colorado Avalanche are favored. These using Pinnacle, one of the sharpest books out there. You can join Pinnacle Sports by clicking the link below in the description here. But Colorado Avalanche, 8.02 or plus 702 are the favorites this year to win the Cup. But then there's a whole series of teams. The Leafs are actually 10.02 or plus 902. So, I just go through this list and I think, is there value here? And I think one of the biggest plays at the beginning of the season that a lot of bettors really jumped on was the Habs, so the Montreal Canadiens. They were like 40-1 and they're down to 13 now. So definitely a lot of line movement there, which would, for me personally, make me stay away from it now. But, I like to look at the bottom of the list. Like, who are the teams that actually have a chance to do some damage? So the Dead Wings, Ted... 627-1.
Yeah, I think you're just throwing your money away if you're gonna put a little something on that. I would say,
right, and then
a couple drinks or something.
Right, and then scrolling up, you actually get to a couple teams that have played in the playoffs in the last recent years. So the Nashville Predators are 82-1, and they've been a solid playoff team. They were in the Cup final. They lost to the Blues, right? They lost to the Blues just a couple years ago. Canucks 71-1. And then you get into teams like Chicago at 41, the Stars who were in the finals last year at 41. So You know, if you like cheering for sports and you like following something, I think there's some good teams that you could just put a few bucks on if that's the kind of thing that you want to do. Dallas Stars, they made it to the final last year. They pay 41-1. I'm not telling anyone to take that, but I'm just saying I would much rather take that in hockey than the Avalanche, who have never done it, at 8-1.
In my opinion, there's only one future bet that's ever been worth it, and that was when Leicester won the Premier League, and that guy cashed in. I think it was like
5,000-1.
5,000-1.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was one of the craziest stories of all time.
Totally.
But that's the only future I'd ever take again.
Yeah, in hindsight.
If I go back to the future, I would take it.
In hindsight, yeah. Any other questions you want to throw at Ted? Or Ted, any questions you want to throw at us?
It was the Canadiens, by the way. 92-93 were the last Canadian team to win the cup.
Yeah, and I said the Avalanche had never done it.
Since
They
then,
won in 96.
we've had the Canucks in 94, the Canucks in 11. The Flames in 05 or 04, whatever. The Oilers in 06, I think it was.
Yeah.
So we've had a few shots at it, but we can't close the deal.
We as Canadians.
We're too nice.
Yeah, sorry. Ted, anything you wanted to ask us or anything else you got for Ted? Ritzker?
Just with what you guys were just talking about with the futures and the divisions, like I think if you're into that, it's going to come down to the last few games because of the shortened season, and if you look at the standings, everything's really tight already, and I don't think that's going to change. So maybe look at teams that are on the outside of the playoffs, or so many teams from each division are going to get in. So there very well could be one of those teams you just listed, someone like Dallas or one of those teams paying 30-40 to 1 they're going to have a shot.
Yeah, they go on a 2 or 3 game win streak and they're in, right? And then you got a ticket to the dance. And
yeah. I think at inplayLIVE, though, we like to grab our 30-40 to 1s where we get the settlement instantly as opposed to at the end of the season.
I'll take him at 40 to 1 game 7.
Yeah.
Ted, I got a question. Have you ever made a bet from a boom lift or from a bucket truck?
That's a good question. Have I made one up in the air? Fuck, I've probably been on my phone before. I don't think I've actually made a wager. I've definitely probably been, crouch behind a truck or something, trying to get one in. I was working late the other night, probably a couple weeks ago, and you were streaming, and I think I got one in at the end of the game in the third, one of the ones we like to do, and I don't think it hit, but I think I knew how much time was left in each of the games, even though I wasn't really watching.
Right.
Okay, so to play off of that then, if not that, what is the strangest or craziest situation in which you've placed a bet before?
Placed a bet? I don't know. Craziest situation. I don't know, man. Probably just blackout, and then you wake up in the morning and your balance is way down, and you're just like, fuck, I did do that last night. Is that what you're looking for?
Well, that's what Ray says when Bet365 says, "Oh, your bet didn't count," and they took it back. He says, "Well, you didn't let me take my bets back when I was drunk and placing bets I shouldn't have made. So how is that fair?"
Yeah.
But yeah, I think anything from the grocery store to the golf course to on the back of a boat to
front seat at a play.
front seat at the Nutcracker on a Sunday. Yeah. You never know where the opportunity is going to strike. So
when the mood strikes, yeah.
All right, Ted, thanks for coming on, man. Really appreciate you joining us. Appreciate your support in the community, and really proud personally of your success of being one of our top students who's stuck with us from the beginning and just killed it, right? And it wasn't all rainbows, sunshine and rainbows. So congrats on sticking to it, staying level-headed, and looking forward. You're a member of the 5-figure club. I'm looking forward to the day you hit the 6-figure club of profit. So.
Oh yeah, fucking right, man. It's gonna happen one day. Not tomorrow. I'm
not increasing the units that much.
But yeah, it's gonna happen for sure. I can't wait to fucking Fucking tell some people what the day that is. Like, you made that much money gambling on sports, something, you know, all of us love to do, and definitely never thought it could be a reality, but it's definitely not an unrealistic goal at this point, I would say.
Love it, Ted.
Good
All right,
for you,
bud.
man. Yeah.
We'll chat soon, okay? Cheers.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, guys. Take it easy.
Cool. What's cool about him is like what he mentioned. He's like 24, 25, and he's like had the discipline even to like stick with it for 6 months and to grow it and completely go 180 from rec better to actually like applying himself at that, which is like that's like your ideal candidate. Just like, hey, are you somebody who loves sports? Yes. Do you like betting on sports? Yes. Do you want to do it better? Yes.
Yeah.
Bang, 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 and sticks with it.
Yeah,
so,
we didn't
cool.
we didn't touch on this, but before the call, he obviously mentioned to us that he didn't know a lot about football.
Yeah.
Right. So when we were teaching things during the NFL and NCAA football season, he learned a lot. And I think not only did he learn a lot, he showed that someone that doesn't have a lot of knowledge for one specific sport can do really, really well through following the program.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think that should be a public service announcement to watch the courses, use the materials.
Yeah.
We have so many things. Talk to people within the group, but like put the work in to understand it. Don't just blindly. You can't. It just doesn't work.
Absolutely.
Right. So.
Absolutely.
You brought something up yesterday on your Monday update, but March Madness is around the corner.
Yep.
I personally think we should do a massive Survivor bracket. I think that's the best go-to, but we can throw in a couple extra games in there if you want, but that'll be coming around the corner for anyone and everyone involved in the community, and we're going to open that up to the public as well. So that should be pretty awesome. Coming up, March 15th or something like that?
It's 3 weeks from now that
14th.
they do the selection.
The selection. So we'll set that up a couple weeks in advance so that people can get in there and get that going. Other current news, Tiger Woods news today.
Devastating.
Brutal. I mean, who knows what the story's going to be there, but
I think it's one of these things where we don't know the story yet, and by the time people are watching this, maybe more will have come out. But number one, like,
he's out for the year.
Tiger Woods is a hero, so thoughts with him 100%. Hoping that he makes a quick recovery and that it's nothing too serious, but it sounds like his legs are pretty messed up. So, if anyone can come back from anything, it's Tiger. He's already proven that. But at the same time, you just hope that the guy and his family are able to, sort of find peace and, he gets the help that he needs, because this is a recurring thing, right? We don't know what happened in this case yet, but you just want to make sure that he's okay.
Well, what's tough for sports fans is that we've all been holding our breath as to whether or not he's going to make it for the Masters, which is only 5 weeks away, 6 weeks away.
Yep.
And that's not happening now. So
no, this season's done. Next season's probably done. Yeah.
And
then he's 47 years old.
Yeah. Time.
So guy like him, he'll keep playing the Masters. Him and Fred Couples will always be walking down the fairway together, right? Until
well, they'll just keep doing it.
Yeah, because how could you not go play at Augusta after you've won? Especially with Tiger, right? Like he's been such a monumental sort of figure in the world of golf, especially at a place like Augusta, right? Augusta's got deep roots, and Tiger changed a lot of them. So he's a pretty monumental guy, and I just hope he's okay. And it makes you think about Kobe Bryant, and then you go, okay, Tiger's going to be okay. Like at the worst case scenario, it sounds like he's still going to be a dad to his kids, and so it makes you think about what happened with Kobe, and you go, life's short, and you just got to be, not take anything for granted, and just appreciate what he's done for the game, and not worry so much about. We don't need Tiger to go win 10 more majors. That's not, that chapter's been closed. So yeah.
Just one more to beat Snead. We got a huge slate of puck tonight.
So you'll be hoops tonight.
Live
Huge
for
slate
that.
of hoops tonight. Yeah.
Anything you want to touch on hoops of late? I know that hoops has been pretty good to us the last little bit.
Yeah, it's been really good to us. I think one of the best things with basketball for us at inplayLIVE is we don't do well if we take our strategies and we apply them day one, week one. We need a couple of weeks or a couple of months worth of data to really start to identify some good patterns with teams. That's for call it value wagers, whereas Kenny's more of a let's pick up some money off the ground kind of guy, and it's a bit of a slower slower grind, but with much lower risk. His stuff's obviously day one strategies,
Yeah.
and that's been going extremely well for our members that are following Kenny right now on inplayLIVE Pro. So, yeah, we're doing a podcast on hoops. We don't have it scheduled yet, but with a good friend of ours, and we also have a really good podcast coming up in the next couple weeks, which is going to be how a spouse handles living with a sports value analyst, which is going to hopefully be controversial and really get
IPL,
give people some perspective on
Family Feud edition.
Yeah, give people some perspective on how you can legitimately go about the business with a family, with a job, with other time commitments and balance and all that kind of stuff. So should be really good.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, as always, click the subscribe button, leave some comments. We want to know what you guys want to hear about, what you guys want to talk about, any questions you have about the content we've discussed. Go to inplayLIVE on Instagram, on Facebook, on the website. Check out the free webinar and join us for the next live stream. You can always join us with the links below there. 40% off if you use Ritzker Podcast. And we've got a couple links for Pinnacle and other websites if you want to get some promos joining some websites. Okay?
Till next time.